One. Hey, welcome back to the Rock Fantasy YouTube channel. We're here for another episode of Rock Fantasy Files, and this is a Black Sabbath edition. As we are taping this on Tony Iommi's 77th birthday. Wow!
Right.
And we're going to set the time machine tonight to 1970 on the albums we're going to chat about. Two Black Sabbath albums were released that year. The self-titled album originally released on February 13th on Vertigo in the UK and on June 1st here in the US. And Paranoid was the second album, of course, released on September 18th on Vertigo in the UK and on January 7th, 1971 in the US on Warner Brothers Records. And both of them will be celebrating, 55th anniversaries this year. Of course, a little bit off because one came out a year, both of them came out in 70 in UK, but one came out a little bit later. I guess here's a little bit on each. For those that don't know, most people do know, but the debut, according to Tony Iommi, the album was recorded in a 12-hour session on October 1969. We just went in the studio and did it in a day. We played our live set, and that was it. We actually thought the whole day was quite a long time then. Off we went the next day to play in Switzerland on a gig. Aside from the bells, thunder, and rain and sound effects added to the beginning and the opening track, the double track guitar solos at NIB and Sleeping Village, there were virtually no overdubs on the album at all. It was released on Friday the 13th in February 1970. Black Sabbath reached number 8 on the UK album charts. Following its United States release in June 1970 by Warner Brothers, the album reached number 23 on the Billboard Top LP chart, where it remained for more than a year and sold 1 million copies. So then we'll on to Paranoid. In an effort to capitalize on the recent UK chart success of the debut album, Black Sabbath returned to the studio with producer Roger Bain in June 70, just 4 months after the album was released. Paranoid was recorded at Regent Sound Studios and Island Studios in London, England. The album's title track was written as an afterthought, as drummer Bill Ward explained. We didn't have enough songs for the album, and Tony Iommi just played this guitar lick, and that was it. Took 25 minutes from top to bottom, and the liner notes and the 1988 live album reunion, Geezer Butler recounts to Phil Alexander. They wrote the song in 5 minutes. I sat down and wrote the lyrics as quickly as I could. All was done in about 2 hours, according to Alexander. Paranoid crystallized the band's writing process, with Iommi initiating the ideas, with the charred riffs, Ozzy Osbourne working on a melody, and Geezer providing the drive and the majority of the lyrics. Bill Ward locking in to a set, often pounding rhythms beneath Butler's bass rumble. The single was released August 1970 and reached number 4 on the UK charts, the remaining Black Sabbath's only top 10 hit. Paranoid peaked at number 12 on the Billboard 200 and ended up at number 13 on the year-end charts here in the US that year. So here we are to talk about Sabbath tonight. We got Ralph Viera from the Almost Human channel, so definitely go check out his YouTube channel if you haven't heard before. I know Ralph and Tony Dio have been on that quite a bit. And we got Count Ralphus back tonight, one of our regulars. We got James Delisle from Disc and Dat Records and Crucial Pain. We got Tony Dio in my center square tonight. We got Richard Johnson, who is a first-time guest on the show, and we'll talk to him a little bit because he's got a history with Black Sabbath and quite an interesting one. We got Tom Cap, from the drummer from the tri-state area up here, Into the Void, one of the great Black Sabbath tributes. Great to have him back on the channel. We got Ed Farsley from Armageddon Productions. Chris Allo from Sea of Tranquility was going to join us tonight, but he had an emergency to rush out. He may pop his head in. We got fingers crossed he will. And I got a question for everybody just to start this off. Well, this is a week where there's been a ton of Black Sabbath news involving the Back to the Beginning concerts in Birmingham, England, to be held on July 5th. And it seems like there's different news stories all the time. First, you thought you were getting, a final set with Ozzy, doing Ozzy material. which I was led to believe. And then there was a Sabbath set. And then, of course, now there was a statement that Ozzy had made a couple days ago stating that he was just going to do dips and dabs. And, in my mind, originally, I kind of thought that we would only have him doing a couple songs with his, decline in health and what else was going on. And now you see more bands getting added. I mean, there's a ton of bands to play in one day. I mean, they just added Tool and Guns N' Roses, and now they got Jason, what's his Momoa, the dude that played Aquaman. I guess, I don't know what he's going to do. I guess he's the MC. I don't know. It just seems like they keep adding more and more stuff. But I thought I'd go around and ask everybody what are their thoughts. I mean, if you ask me, I think it's kind of like a celebration of life. It's a end for Black Sabbath and Ozzy, and who knows, but it kind of seems like it's all these other band members are coming into this thing. That a lot of guys, just one guy from a band, like the singer from Korn's going, or this guy's going, the Papa from Ghost is going. Are they? In my mind, is that going to be like this giant Black Sabbath tribute band that day with all these different performers and musicians going up and doing a couple songs and coming off? That was my take on it. But maybe I'll go around. Who would like to go first and just answer that question? What's your thoughts on this show? Quickly.
Go ahead.
All right,
go ahead, Count Ralphus.
So yeah, it's like we were taught last week we did an Almost Human. We celebrated the release date of the debut, and we mentioned this really quick, and I kind of thought, yeah, probably be like 3 Sabbath songs and 3 Ozzy songs, but I figured maybe 3 songs with like Sabbath playing, and then I figured they would do some kind of jams or something. I just couldn't picture there being. I feel like if Chris Allen was here, he paid the money to go to England when Sabbath did their last final show.
Yep.
And that was, to me, even though Bill Ward wasn't part of it, that was really the final show where it was a real show. Where this, even with Bill Ward being there, it seems like it's great that they did it, but they should have did it a long time ago with him. They shouldn't have waited this long. They should have did it when everybody could do it at a level at being a regular concert. But the fact, like you're saying, though, about being like a celebration, end of it all, they say he's going to do bits and pieces. You kind of wonder, is he just going to like have a bucket of water and say, everybody go crazy, and somebody else singing the whole time or something, and he'll do a lot of
water gun. Super sucker.
So it'd still be great to be at, but it's cool that they're doing something.
Well, the fact that we know that
James,
Ozzy can't
go ahead.
walk, the fact that we know now that Ozzy can't walk, obviously he's going to be sitting in a chair the whole time.
Yeah.
We saw him at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He didn't look good. Obviously trying to keep himself from shaking too much and stuff. I from the first second they announced this, I was like, you're going to be lucky if you get 4 whole songs with Ozzy singing. And the fact that you're seeing, in the undercard, like the singer from Smashing Pumpkins, the singer from Ghost, the singer from Disturbed, the singer from Korn, kind of says that you're going to get mostly like a superstar tribute to Ozzy and Sabbath.
Yeah.
So that's, to me, like, it's not a big fucking surprise if you bought tickets and you're going over there for this. And, I see people leaving nasty comments like, oh, I can't believe that they waited. It's like, but dude, you saw the undercard. Like, you kind of knew what you were getting.
And Tony Iommi turned 77 today. Yeah. So it's not just Ozzy. Imagine trying to play Sabbath's drums in your 70s. Ask Tom about if he's going to be able to play those kind of drums when he's in his 70s.
True. And I actually read that what the dude from Rage Against the Machine that's there is actually putting together this jam session. That's what I had heard too. So
Tom Morello's putting it together.
That's what I heard, something to do with that. Yeah. But I have a few friends that got tickets that are looking forward to go, and they're huge like Ozzy and Sabbath fans and Metallica fans and Pantera fans. So I'm sure they're going to have a great time when they get over there, regardless of what's going on.
It's gonna be.
It's going to be a blast, but you're not going to get a full Ozzy set of it.
No.
You'll be lucky if you get 1 or 2 songs with only Ozzy singing the whole song. There's going to be backup singers. There's going to be guest singers. There's going to be celebrities.
Yep.
It'll be good, but it's not going to be Black Sabbath and Ozzy.
Yeah.
Ozzy,
Exactly.
like you said, just bits and pieces.
Yep. So, anybody else want to weigh in on that concert at all? That's a bit.
I wanted to go. I mean, because one of my missions in life is I want to take a picture in front of the house from the first Sabbath album. My friends have, so I thought that would be a good excuse. Go to England, see this, and also take the picture. But man, it's just way out of my price range. But
agreed.
I know even if it's a train wreck, I'm just happy that the last Sabbath album show features the original 4. Even if it's a train wreck, I'll take that. Honestly, also, I'm a little more excited about Jakey Lee and Ozzy and Rudy Sarzo playing together.
Agreed. Yeah, definitely.
That to me is a little more, because I've seen Sabbath, the original Sabbath, several times, and I did see Jake with Ozzy on Bark of the Moon and Ultimate Sin. But what's that been? Almost 40 years now.
Yes.
You know?
Oh yeah.
So that to me is like the shocker. You know?
Yeah.
There's a lot of bitter feelings between those guys. So that's really good they included those two.
But of course, Bob Daisley should be there. But
yeah. Cool.
On that Ultimate Sin tour, Ozzy came down on a big like demon throne, so he could just do that again, and they should just like float him all around the stage. He just should be floating around the stage the whole time.
Yeah,
I mean, there's that famous like King's Captain seat or whatever you want to call it that a bunch of people have used over the last few.
The guitar throne.
Yes.
Yeah, because remember Axl had a broken leg and he was in it, and it was like this guy was in it. So Dave Grohl. I think Jonathan Davis had it for a little while when he was getting overcome.
Yeah.
So it was that. I'm sure they'll build a new one, but they'll have a big seat to sit in possibly. Anybody else want to weigh in before we move on to the show? Tom?
Yeah. I agree with Count Ralph. Is that it's a shame that they waited this long. I think everybody really wanted to see Bill up there for the 13 record and for the tour. I'm not sure if this holds any water, but I got a little bit of a theory that when they started to jam for that record and the tour, Bill was there, and supposedly that's around when Tony had cancer, and Bill had all these Post-it notes up all over the place because he couldn't remember the songs. Like he wasn't really prepared because, I guess he's older and it was so long since he played these songs with these guys. And I think Tony got nervous because, there was a good chance he could have died. So they couldn't really wait for Bill to get his shit together. And, with the Post-it notes and forgetting and his health and all this. So Tony probably just said, look, we're going to do this. Let's get somebody young that's gonna do it quickly so we could get this done. And I think that's also why they had 2 different drummers in there. One, the guy from Rage that played on the record, and then they used Tommy on the tour and all that stuff. So my theory was that Tony might have been like a little bit nervous that it was going to take too long, and he might have died before it even got off the ground if they used Bill. And then obviously the whole thing with the contract, he wasn't happy getting paid peanuts compared to Ozzy and other guys. So he bailed. And now, all these years later, they're going to give it a shot. And I just hope everybody lives to July, like this.
Yeah.
Guys don't bring chickens no more, man.
Yeah.
So
I will say that
yeah, go ahead.
Hey,
when
Richard.
I did a few tours with the Ozzfest, and all the shows that were cut short, all the shows that were canceled, all the shows that Rob Halford had to sing. It was all Ozzy Osbourne. Bill Ward never ever canceled a show.
Wow.
So I don't know.
Yeah, let's hope that's the case still, man.
So,
I went to one of those Ozzfest where, they told us at like 6 o'clock, if you want a refund, Sabbath ain't playing, and Iron Maiden was playing with them that night, and they didn't play any extra songs. They just played their regular set, and we were out of there like 10:30 or whatever. It was bullshit, and it was like 2 weeks later that the whole egg throwing thing went down with Iron Maiden and Sharon.
That's why that started. Actually, people, I think I've mentioned this somewhere, but in Columbus, Ohio, Ozzy said he couldn't sing, and Sabbath weren't going to perform in Columbus. It was an amphitheater called Polaris. It's not there anymore, and so Maiden had the radio station in Columbus announce that Ozzy wasn't going to perform. Sabbath's not going to perform. That Maiden were going to perform their. They were doing 85 and back, and Maiden were going to perform an extra 40 minutes, and the show at that point, the Ozzfest, had sold a couple of thousand tickets. It was getting like where people from 99, 2001, 2004, people were like, okay, we're going to go to hear Iron Man, Paranoid again. And so the sales were not what it was in 2005. And when they made that announcement on the radio, the show within a couple of hours sold another 5,000 tickets. Wow. That's how bad people wanted to see Maiden play 85 and back. Wow. And it really, that is what started the rivalry. No matter what she said or what people say or what you've heard, the fact that Maiden alone sold that much more on an Ozzfest when Ozzy canceled. I mean, that pissed her off, and then everything started. She blamed it on Bruce not being cordial in the hallway. And blah, I mean, all that. And that night, I don't know what was said. She must have said something, because that night on stage, I watched Bruce Dickinson say, and this is in Columbus in 2005, I watched him say, we're extending our set. You're going to see a real heavy metal singer, not a fucking idiot trying to figure out how to work a remote. You're going to watch a real heavy metal singer tonight. And after that, the gloves were definitely off.
Oh, yeah.
At my show, he said you might as well call it Maiden Fest. And then it was like 2 shows later is when everything went down.
Wow.
So
that's what he said at my show, I remember.
So let's, before we get any further with this episode, let's hear about Richard and Tony. You said we got to get Richard on this episode, and so did Ralph. Now, Richard, let's welcome to the show, and let's explain to people what you did. So you drove the tour bus and
trucks. I drove a Bangor truck for the for those 04 and 05. But I was a big fan before that. I'd gone to see a lot of shows on my own time and money, and because I was a long history with Bill and pen pals, and he had given me advance notice about this is before I was ever in the business, like 2 or 3 years before I was in the music business. Bill let us know that the original 4 were going to play in Costa Mesa in November of '92. Oddly enough, it ended up on my birthday, November 15th, 1992. But working a shit job and not having any money, because Bill Ward gave me like 6 months notice, me and a group of friends did fly out and attend that. And which was weird. We were already in the middle of attending the Humanizer reunion shows. And then, so we thought, this is awesome. We're going to go to California and see more Dehumanizer shows and Ronnie. And then we'll see this Costa Mesa thing, which was going to end with the original 4. And of course, Ronnie didn't play after Oakland. We found that out. And we went to Oakland to see the last Ronnie show with Sabbath. And then we came back to LA to see Pantera and Trouble. And then a Costa Mesa show was Sepultura, Judas, or Rob Halford singing for Sabbath, and then Ozzy did solo, and then the 4 originals did 4 songs or something. But yeah, and that was on my birthday, November 15th, '92. So that was weird. But and then later I was in the music business, and ended up as a driver, and I did do the I did a few Ozzfest with the original four, and I did '07 Heaven and Hell with Dio,
Nice.
which I'm on the Radio City DVD, and then I did '08 the Metal Masters with Sabbath, and '09 the last Dio tour with Heaven and Hell. I did those, but in between all that, I would go see shows on my own dime, in other places. So, but yeah, so I had a history already before ever doing the tour with them.
The
Rich, I got a
Ozzfest.
question for it.
What's that, Tom?
I got a question for you, Rich.
Go ahead.
Supposedly, I heard on a lot of those Ozzfest shows there was a guy backstage, like on side stage, that was also singing lead vocals when Ozzy couldn't do it. And supposedly it was a friend of mine named Bobby Mason that was doing that. Did you ever see anything like that going on?
The only person that I saw that was doing backup vocals and was Adam Wakeman, the keyboard player, and he would do backup vocals to a harmonizer, so it did reflect Ozzy's tone. And he also did rhythm guitar of all things, on the song Paranoid. He played rhythm guitar, which was weird, but that's the only person I ever saw in 2004 or 5 doing any kind of backing. I don't know what happened once I wasn't around, but when I was there, and I did the 2010 Ozzfest too, with Blasco and Tommy. I did that. Thank God I got to see Halford, the band Halford, every day. That was amazing. But the Ozzy band sort of sucked. But yeah, I did. I don't have it written in front of me. I sort of forget what I did. But no, I only saw Adam Wakeman singing in unison with Ozzy. But gotcha. I never thought it was replacement. I just thought it was Ozzy had a lot of gaps and a lot of dead space and notes he didn't hit anymore. So I just always felt Adam was there to make it sound normal, sort of like Speak of the Devil with all that delay.
Yeah.
Tom, what you're bringing up, I think you're talking about Robert Mason. Yeah, I ran into him on Ozzfest when he was doing that, and I was like, asking him, and he just told me he's the offstage singer with Ozzy, and it was just a quick interchange. I was like, hey, Robert Mason, and I recognized him. But I think, they just basically had him off stage doing the harmonies. It's just it's just maybe, whoever, I don't know who was playing bass, maybe it was the Blasco guy or whatever. He and Zach or whatever don't want to do the harmony vocals, and it makes it sound better.
That may have been the case in 2010 or something.
Yeah, you get a lot of offstage keyboard players, like he was saying, Adam Wakeman, that do backing vocals and stuff like that.
King Diamond's wife did it for him on his live.
Exactly. Yeah,
King Diamond's wife was up there doing the same thing.
Yeah, they had
that could be true.
Girl with him this time. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that makes sense.
I didn't really watch Ozzy on the 2010 tour. It was, in my mind, he was already way past the point where he should have been quitting, and I was, and my Vince Neil was horrible, and who else was on that? Motley Crue and Black Label. Can't remember. Anyway, I watched Halford every single day, and it was like top of the pops, man. It was awesome. But Ozzy just, that guy Gus G was a really good guitar player, but I just wasn't into it. And
I caught that tour at the Meadowlands. It was a Scream tour. And it was Ozzy's like 62nd birthday or something.
Yeah, I was at that. That was after so he's talking Ozzfest, so right.
And I think they did a break.
They did a
break, and he came back out in the winter and did that.
It was Halford open though.
Halford and Zombie, I think.
Rob Zombie too, maybe.
No, not on that one. I don't.
Okay, that was a different one. That was
maybe I missed. I thought it was only 2 bands.
That was another Christmas one. I think it was around. It was a Ozzy with Rob Zombie. Richard, I was at the 04 tour. I went to that 3 times. I saw it at Jones Beach. I saw it at PMC in Homedale.
Yeah,
and then I was at the historic one, I guess, to me, because I was at the Camden show.
Saw Halford sing, yeah.
Yep. And
Yep.
I had a friend of mine there that I don't know, he was working security with somebody, and I had bought a VIP ticket, so I was right down in the pit the whole night. And I thought that was the strongest Ozzfest yet, because it had Priest, it had the original Sabbath, it had Slayer.
Yeah, it was good.
It had Divya Borgia there. It was just a solid show. But he had told me earlier in the afternoon that, hey, Sabbath is going to cancel tonight. He goes,
yeah.
And he said that Sabbath is going to cancel. You should probably leave now. There could be a riot and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, I'm not leaving because I've got pit tickets and I'm going to watch everybody until that happens. And then a little bit later, and I don't know whether they announced it on the PA or somebody let me know, and they said, well, Rob Halford is going to sing for Black Sabbath tonight. And I think that was the second time. The first time, obviously, was that birthday thing that you went to, right, Richard? And
yeah. So he's happened twice, and it's dumb luck. I was there both times, but Bill Ward came out and announced it.
Oh, did he?
After they booed the, they had a venue guy come out and announce it, and then about 30 minutes later, Bill Ward come out and announce it. And if you have a copy of the bootleg in Camden, you'll hear Bill Ward say, "We're still going to put on a kick-ass rock show," and then the crowd boos Bill Ward.
Wow!
And, yeah, it's pretty sad.
This is the whole Camden show on DVD, a bootleg DVD.
Yep. Iron God. Yep.
Wow.
Which is probably a better show than the Costa Mesa, because Rob was definitely in the tour mode, and when he went to the Costa Mesa show, he was from a dead stop. I mean, Ronnie played 2 nights earlier, and then Rob was in Costa Mesa, and he did some false starts on
Children of the Grave,
and some weird stuff. But I don't think the Camden has any snafus or whatever.
Yeah, I like that video of Children of the Grave where he comes in like a measure too soon, and Tony walks up and taps him on the back. That's great. So Richard, actually, which Ozzfest was it that you ended up? They put you as Bill's personal assistant. That was the one I met you on, wasn't it? I think that's when I first met you, maybe, because Bill was doing the AA meetings and stuff on that tour.
Yeah, that's all of them. But I think it was the 04 one, because Tony started talking to me because I had a shirt on. I'd made shirts for Bill's drum tech and Bill's assistant and Bill's and me. And I was already acting as a pseudo assistant. Like I would go get the cooler and dump the water out and take it to the truck or whatever. Glamorous rock stuff. And and I'd made these shirts that said Mr. Bill fucking Ward, because that's how Ozzy would introduce him every night. Ozzy would do this thing where he bowed at the drum riser and get the crowd really wound up. Mr. Bill fucking Ward, Mr. Bill Ward. And so I made these shirts. And so I think I was wearing that shirt in Raleigh, and that's why Tony came up and said, "Hey, what time's Bill going to get here?" I said, "Oh, he'll be in here at 2:00,
he's talking about me, not Iommi.
Yeah. Yeah, Tony Dio, Raleigh.
But you ended up helping Bill on that tour as a assistant.
He had a tour manager assistant, and he still does. That guy actually works with Black Sabbath right now, but that guy got hired to be a tour manager and had to go to England for Susie and Banshees, and he said, "Hey, you can be Bill's assistant." I think it was like a week, but it was just common stuff that, like, Bill, he won't drink a bottle of water if it's been opened. You gotta open it in front of him. Let's see, like you gotta wake him up and stuff, but you can't like yell. You gotta like gently put your arm on his shoulder and let him come to. There's just a lot of little weird rituals that he does, and so,
only black M&Ms.
Yeah, no.
Black M&Ms.
Is that true, Ralphus? Only black.
That's what Richard said.
Is that what it's true?
No, I didn't. Only black chocolate.
Do they even make those?
What's that, Tom?
Just for Sabbath, they did.
What is it?
Yeah, Richard was out with Heaven and Hell, and I ran into him at Radio City Music Hall. He was parked right out front, and we had stayed in contact for a little. We kind of lost contact for a little while, and I'm walking across the street. I hear him calling my name, and the truck's parked on the side of the street because there's nowhere to park, out in New York City. But he's interviewed on the DVD with it's a lot of behind the scenes stuff and all. And Richard's got a tattoo of the Pope on a rope, and they interview him. They interview him about that and about him being a Sabbath fan and stuff. And then he got to go out again on that last tour with Ronnie. I did Metal Masters because you got us backstage at the Metal Masters tour, and then he got us backstage at the last tour, and we got to see Ronnie and stuff at the end of the night and stuff, and that was so cool, man. But I know you've told me stories about Vinny and Ronnie would just come up and want to sit in the truck with you and talk for a little while and stuff like that. That's pretty cool, man. You got to see him on a daily basis.
Yeah, that was cool. It was Tony's personal assistant. Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank on his name. Ed, he was from UK, and he was an actual tour driver in the UK for a company that does it over there called Transom. But the trucks and the roads and everything is so much smaller over there. He was so fascinated with the shiny, the real big, 13-speed Peterbilts and the real big, the 53-foot trailers. I don't know how long the trailers are in Europe, but yeah, there was some people. I mean, even Rob Halford. I got a picture in my room here of Rob in my truck, flipping me off, and
yeah, Rob's driving the truck, flipping him off.
Yeah, that was on my that was on the Angel of Retribution. And funny story about that is on that Ozzfest 2010. I went up to Rob, and he didn't really speak to me, so I just figured he didn't remember me. And his assistant, I said, I'm gonna head out, and he's like, well, why sit down and have dinner with him? I was like, I felt like Rob, didn't recognize me, and he's like, oh no. Rob spoke up. He said, oh no, I remember you quite well. Your photographs are hanging in my home, and that's what he's talking about is him flipping the bird and like out the driver's window of my truck. Just like. I'll show you. But yeah.
Did he try to get you to take him to any truck stops?
No, thank God.
He talks a lot about that in his books. In his books, he talks a lot about loving the truck stops.
Richard left us now.
I think you went to get that picture. Can you see it? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. But no, that was when I had to put that book down too. So, that was just sickening, really. But and I don't understand why you would put that in a book. But I did tell KK Downing when I met him recently, thank you for not putting, material about sucking people off in a truck stop. And he looked at me and said, oh, not me, mate. So yeah.
You got the cool KK hat on right now.
Yeah,
too.
I love that. I love that band.
Awesome. Yeah,
seen them twice last year, man. I hope it keeps going.
So Richard, where are you from right now? Where do you live?
Just outside of Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay. And how did you and Tony Dio met working shows? Is that how you guys met?
No, I was on the tour wearing the Bill Ward shirt.
Yep.
But he had reviewed my band in a zine. I'd heard of him because he reviewed my band in a zine he used to write for in the 90s. I was in a band and
okay.
But yeah.
What'd you do in a band? What'd you do in a band?
Play drums.
Nice.
Play drums.
What was the band?
It's called Bible Belt Byproduct.
And the it's three B's, and they look like 13s in the logo.
Cool. And it's on YouTube for a small charge. No, I'm kidding. It's free now. Everybody can just.
I don't think we even talk about records. We could have just interviewed Richard and made this an episode.
He's got great stories, man. He's got so many stories from all the people that he's met over the years and stuff, and just growing up in the music scene in Atlanta alone, he's told me some great stories. Now he was hanging out at a Judas Priest concert where Glenn Hughes was there, and he was so drunk he got thrown off the Judas Priest tour bus. Richard took a picture with him, and he's got puke, and not Richard, but puke all down his shirt.
He pissed his pants. He was, and I know Glenn probably hates that, but it's like he was there for Dave Holland. It was the Ram It Down tour, and Dave Holland was still in the band, and Glenn went on Dave's bus, and like. It wasn't long after that he came off, and they kicked him off, and he looked like he was having seizures. His eyes were rolling back in his head, and he took his watch off, and he was like, "I'll give any motherfucker, my Rolex to take me to get cocaine." And he was pissed himself, vomited himself. We really thought he was going to die because we were like 1989. I was like 21.
You're talking about Glenn Hughes right now? You're talking about Glenn Hughes? I just finished reading his autobiography, and that guy like almost died like every fucking week. And him and Dave Holland were in trapeze together,
right?
So they were like old school friends. He talks a lot about going to Judas Priest shows later on, just because he had that connection, and he would show up at all the Judas Priest shows. But holy shit, that book, how that guy survived, unbelievable.
Wow.
Richard and I went to see Black Country Communion. We went to see Black Country Communion in DC, and we were hanging out afterwards, and hoping maybe that we could get to meet him, talk to him, whatever. And Richard ended up figuring out who the tour manager was.
No, it was Derek. It was Derek Sherinian.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah, Derek came over to talk to you because you had some CDs he was on, and
that's what it was. Yeah.
And I said, tell Glenn Richard from Atlanta, Charlie Magruder's bar is here. And he said, yeah, bring him up to the dressing room or whatever.
Yeah, they invited us right up. And Glenn, we talked to Glenn, and he showed Glenn that photo that I was talking about and Glenn just looks at it and goes, that was me. Yeah. Can I keep this? I want to put this in the next pressing of my book.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about a picture of just somebody trash. That was Glenn. That's when he had that crazy 80s mullet and his hair is all crazy and stuff.
He looked me dead in the face and said, "You guys saved my life that night." And I was like, I really didn't save his life, but I was there with people that instead of taking him to get more cocaine, took him to a hospital. So I mean,
I must have read that, and just recently, I just finished that book a couple of days ago, and I must have read about this whole scenario and not known that was you that was part of it. It's crazy.
Yeah, he was here all the time doing. He was at all kind of shows, like just it sort of became like he I noticed that the bar was called Charlie Magruder's. I mean, it's been out of business for 30 years. And I noticed in the book he changed the name. And I'm thinking, I didn't understand why he changed the name, because the bar had been out of business for 30 plus years. But
so you read the books and you know the exact stories in that book,
right?
Okay. Oh, because I just finished it, and that sounded like almost like every other night with him. But
and Steve Marriott too. Steve Marriott lived here like 5 years before Glenn. Steve Marriott was number 5, and he did the same thing. He was out of his mind too.
Wow.
So, two of the great
Glenn
singers.
Glenn Hughes' book is one of the most insane books. It's like you can't wait to get to the end where he's like off drugs, because it's just so exhausting how much cocaine he did throughout for so long. It just goes on and on. You're like, how the fuck did he record all these things? It's incredible book. If you're into reading biographies, it's one of the great ones.
Oh, and he still sounds amazing as a singer now.
Oh, it's amazing that he's alive, but it sounds incredible.
He says the briefcase he's holding at California Jam, when the picture of them getting off the plane, he said that briefcase was totally full of cocaine.
Wow.
Deep Purple. That's what he said in the book. Those people would say, "Why are you carrying a briefcase? You're in a fucking band." And he didn't tell anybody, but it's like, that's his coke stash.
Wow.
It was before
bulk.
Cool. So we're here to talk about these two records tonight too, right? So I don't know. It's more interesting just talking to Richard and talking about stuff, but maybe we should have made this a two-parter. Come back next week to talk about Sabbath. And but let's
it's like the final show. We're just celebrating Sabbath.
Yeah, of course. It's kind of all about that. So why don't I just go around to each person and get a little rundown on the album? Which one do you like better? Pick a couple songs. Maybe I'll start off with Ralph. Ralph's been hanging out, just soaking it all in up there. Ralph, what do you say? You got a favorite between the two?
You got two Ralphs. You got
I'm talking about Almost Human, Ralph.
Okay. I'm Ralph.
I would probably go with Paranoid, but I love that first album. And my favorite song off that album is the cover of Warning. It's probably one of my favorite Sabbath songs, but I love both albums. And I actually heard Paranoid when it was new, because when I was 5 years old, me and my brother shared a room. This is back when I lived in Terrytown, New York. You guys are probably familiar with that, right?
I know Terrytown. Yep. I know Terrytown well.
That's where I was born. I was born in Terrytown, New York, and I moved out at 8 years old. But in 1971, Paranoid was fairly new. It came out in late 70. And it would scare me because I was a little kid and I was God-fearing. And when I would hear the riff of Electric Funeral, I'd run out of the room thinking, I'm going to hell listening to it. and then I don't know, 4 or 5 years later, We Sold Our Souls for Rock and Roll, which is heavy on the first album and Paranoid. A lot of those songs are on it. And they've become my favorite band ever since I bought that Greatest Hits. They've been my favorite band all this time. It's over 40 years. We're going on 47, I think, years of me being a Sabbath fanatic. I love everything about, I love all Sabbath, but it's that original. It's the organic Sabbath. After that, they became perfect Sabbath, but I love the organic. And War Pigs, even though it's the popular one, this and that, it's one of the greatest songs ever written.
I agree.
To me, intro, the vocals, the breakdowns, the solos of Tony and Geezer going off with Bill. It's an amazing album. And I love, the first Sabbath album, Wicked World. I grew up with the version of Wicked World, not the one with Evil Woman. I didn't hear Evil Woman till like the 90s.
Yep.
What the hell's this? Because I didn't know there were different versions.
Yeah,
Black Sabbath, man. My favorite's Volume 4, but those first two albums are iconic. They mean a lot to me. They're up there as, my favorite albums from my favorite band. So that's my history on the first two Sabbath albums.
Good. So I guess we'll go over to James next and get your point of view. You ready, James? You're up.
I'm ready. Holy shit, I'm ready. Yeah, man. Wow. So both of these albums I know almost as well as I know Jenna Jameson's filmography. Man, I have really fond memories of being a teenager with my guitar in my lap and listening to Paranoid on cassette, rewind, play, rewind, play, rewind, play, rewind, play, and just trying to learn all the riffs by ear and just being enthralled by everything on Paranoid, man. War Pigs, Electric Funeral, Hand of Doom. Electric Funeral and Hand of Doom don't get talked about enough as far as I'm concerned. Two fantastic songs. And then Fairies Wear Boots, just so great. And even with the played out songs on Paranoid, like with War Pigs and Paranoid and Iron Man, if you go back to those tunes, if you haven't heard them in a long time, they're just so fantastic. But if I had to pick a favorite between the debut and Paranoid, I would probably go with the debut because to me it's not as played out. The song Black Sabbath is just so evil and heavy. I remember being a young dude and getting the Black Sabbath Greatest Hits album that had the Triumph of Death painting on the cover. It's just called Black Sabbath's Greatest Hits. I think it was released on NEMS Records, NEMS, whatever you want to call it. And I remember getting that cassette out of a deli up the street from me. Yeah. And I remember first hearing the song NIB, and it scared the shit out of me, dude. Like the lyrics in it, you know, my name is Lucifer, please take my hand. It's like a love song to Satan, and it just, especially, I guess, because I was in Catholic school at that time, and just hearing that, it was just so dark and creepy and like kind of like brought a horror movie up in my head, you know, listening to that. So good. And the end track on here with Warning, all that guitar pyrotechnics throughout that whole song. It's like this slow, nasty, grimy blues tune. And then there's just all these Tony Iommi guitar pyrotechnics in it. And then the part where like Tony's guitar goes clean and you hear that ba-dan-it, 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 like that whole weird thing right there. It's like so funky, like, and it comes out of nowhere because it's just like, oh, he's doing all these big, beastly, nasty riffs. And then he's got that funk in him, man, like that nasty, just grimy funk to him. He's the best. Honestly, he's the best. Tony Iommi's the shit. Yeah, if I'm picking one out of these two, as much as I learned rhythm and groove and tempo by sitting and listening to Paranoid, the first album just is so raw and nasty and killer. So I'm going to take the first album out of these two. And the thing is, too, about these two records, not only are these two records the building blocks for heavy metal as the whole genre, but they're also the blueprint for a really big, wide, deep subgenre in heavy metal. There's no doom bands that we love without the first album in Paranoid. There's no Trouble, there's no Cathedral, there's no Crowbar, there's no Typo Negative, there's no Chemists.
There's no stoner bands either. Those stoner bands either.
Yeah.
Doom and stoner.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no Orange Goblin, there's no Down, there's
Obviously.
no absolutely. So it's just amazing to go back and listen to these two albums that are 55 years old and go, wow, there wouldn't be a lot of the bands I love without these two records. So
cool.
I'm taking the debut in the battle, but I love them both.
Cool. Let's go over to Tommy Cap with Into the Void. And how you doing down there? Let's get your point of view on these two. I'll go over we'll go around and
I gotta tell you a quick story that I heard, and it was before the first Sabbath album came out, and Sabbath was playing at a club somewhere, and they the DJ was blasting the brand new first Zeppelin record over the PA system.
Okay.
And Ozzy was like blown away, like how heavy it was. And he had no idea who it was, even though he knew all them guys. So he ran up to the guy playing the music, DJ, I guess. And he goes, "Who the fuck is this band, man?" And he said, it's Jimmy Page's new band, Led Zeppelin. He was like, "Holy shit." So he went over to Tony and he said, he goes, "Did you hear that music that they're playing there?" He goes, that's Jimmy Page's band, Zeppelin. He goes, "You hear how heavy that shit is?" And Ozzy said, Tony looked at him and goes, "We're going to be heavier." So that leads me to tell you about the love I have for that first record, as raw as it is, and more different than anything else. When that record came out, the only other heavy shit out there was like Grand Funk and like maybe the MC5 or like
Blue Cheer.
Cheer. Yeah, like that was it, man. Everything else was the Turtles and fucking God knows what, Mamas and the Papas. So this was just like something out of left field where everybody was just like, "What the fuck is it, man?" And nothing against Paranoid whatsoever. I mean, that record, they really hit their stride. The production was really like clean on that record. Obviously, they had the gargantuan hits, War Pigs and Iron Man and, that stuff. But there's just something about that record that, like, it was just raw and new and different. And the tone of it was just fucking downright nasty. His guitar tone and the singing, everything. Bill's drumming. It was just like a shiny new penny, man. Like, that just came out of hell. It was like the baddest. So definitely I got to go with the first one. Paranoid, close second. But yeah, I mean, I go back and forth all the time. Like, I still sometimes I say Sabbath Bloody was their all-time greatest record they ever put out. But then I love Master Reality because you can't go wrong with every fucking song on that record. And then sometimes when I'm in a pissed off mood, which is like most of the time, Sabotage is the angriest fucking record, man. But if you're asking me between 1 and 2, I'm going with 1.
Yeah.
Cool. Hey, how about we ask Richard what his point of view is? How would you like to chime in?
I mean, you do get in a different mood for different records. But there is something about the first album that's very consistent. Like on the Paranoid, you got, Planet Caravan and Iron Man and Paranoid you've heard a million times. But you also, that Hand of Doom song, man, it's dark, Push the Needle In and all that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's really dark, but and it kicks in, it's so mean sounding. But the first album to me is just like, I have a hard time if I put it on. I can't really just skip a song or whatever. There's no song you want to skip on that one. It's just like, I don't know. You just that's a complete record there. I mean, Paranoid is too, but I can I can skip a song or whatever. I can go to side 2 with Electric Funeral and Hand of Doom and Fairies Wear Boots. But with the first one, you got to hear the bells in the rain in the beginning, and you got to go out with Sleeping Village in the warning. It's like, I don't know. To me, if I had to pick, it'd definitely be the first one.
All right.
Hey, Steve.
Good. Yes.
Steve, sorry to interrupt. By the way, Into the Void is out right now, playing all our shows, doing the whole first record. That's the latest thing we've been doing.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
The last 3 shows in a row we did last month, we did the first record every show, and we're going to be playing in Middletown April 5th at the Clemson Brewery, and we're doing it there too.
Cool.
Nice.
Yep.
Awesome.
Well, us in the area will all be there to show up, and then for the encore, you're going to do the Never Say Die album, I hope.
Right.
I would love it. Maybe not swinging the chain, but
I'm always defend Never Say Die. I love that record.
Me too.
Same.
Me too.
Richard,
side 1.
Richard, do you like that record?
I love it. It's
right
like
there.
I went through a phase a few years ago where I played every Sabbath record so many times growing up, especially Paranoid, that I didn't listen to anything in between. I either went right to the first album and then Never Say Die, and I would listen to those. But I did tell them this on. I brought it up on Almost Human, that Ainsley Dunbar, because he was an established musician, established with publishing and management, he got as much money. He got as much money by himself than all 4 Sabbath members got for this first Sabbath album, because for the cover, and that's something a lot of people aren't aware of, that Sabbath had such a shitty deal. They had to split their fourth amongst themselves and management, whereas Ainsley Dunbar got his share. So he ended up making the same exact piece of the pie as all 4 members of Sabbath. He got actually more than all 4 members of Sabbath. I read an interview with him talking about
That's
that.
insane.
I know.
That's for the song. That's for the song "The Warning."
Right.
Because that's his song. Yeah. His band. Yeah. It's crazy.
Speaking of Never Say Die is not my favorite Sabbath album, but it's the album I listen to the most. Ain't that odd? It's probably because but I listen to that one more than all their albums.
Wow. Yeah, you were quoting Johnny Blade yesterday on Facebook.
That's right.
I think the thing is with me would Never Say Die. We're way off topic on the 2 albums, but we're talking Sabbath, is the time period. Like when I discovered Sabbath, I kind of went backwards. I bought Sabotage, I believe, new, but everything before was before that. Because when I was a kid, I mean, I got the Paranoid record given to me to listen to with Alice Cooper School's Out, because one of my best friends, his girlfriend's, his sister's boyfriend, was make fun of me because I listened to soul and R&B. It's like, well, you listen to that like shitty, Temptations and stuff like that. Here's a couple rock records to listen to. So I went home and listened to Paranoid and Alice Cooper, and then that opened up everything. I still love my old R&B stuff, but that opened up that whole thing. But later on, then I remember getting so excited, like when Technical Ecstasy came out. That was like the second album I bought, and I bought that at a place called Lloyd's Record Store in Middletown. And then Never Say Die. And then I was just a little bit older, like Never Say Die what came out in a year where I was a little more like not at home as much, causing trouble, getting in trouble. And I don't know. That album always goes back, and I love listening to that record on like hot summer day. Like I could listen to Never Say Die. I love the jazzy parts and all that. So
I like that with Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die. They're 2 albums that I hadn't listened to like a million times.
Yeah.
So they're the ones that I go back to a lot too.
John McAtee says the same thing, from Incantation, that those are the ones he goes back. We did a whole episode with John Gaffney once in defense of Never Say Die.
Yeah.
There's some people out there that don't like it.
I mean, Ozzy's voice really cuts like a knife on Johnny Blade when he kicks into that. Johnny's a spider, and it's
hell yeah.
It's awesome, man.
Sinister, man. It's sinister.
It's sinister.
I love Air Dance. I just like the whole story behind it.
Yes.
It's so spooky and
Yeah, Air Dance and Junior's Eyes. Those are my 2 favorites.
Singing about like getting older and your dreams of when you were young, and it just stuff.
That beginning of Shockwave is just body slams you.
What I have a question. I always had a question that me and Chris Allo and other people would go to see Sabbath on like the 13 tours, on the farewell tour. When you would go, they would always use the Never Say Die logos on the T-shirts. But yet people claim they didn't like the record and they didn't play stuff from it, but yet that was the T-shirt at the merch booth, was the Never Say Die print, if you remember.
I think that had a lot to do with the Iron Man movie where he's wearing the shirt, and then they were like, "Oh, we got to push this more. We should push this more."
Right. You
But
think
it's
that's
also
why?
another
I don't
way
know.
that and including the album in a certain way. It let it include it into the whole thing that was going on
because it was like the end of that, right? And then never say die. I don't know.
Just the message, never say die. Here they are again. They're back again.
You think it was all caught up in this corporate thing because Robert Downey Jr. was wearing them, or the other guy playing?
I think it had a lot to do with never say die. The words, like here we are again. We're back. We're back again. Don't count us out. Don't count us out yet.
Makes sense.
Cool. So Ed, let's go to
you. Ed's wearing the never say die shirt.
He has it.
It's an old tour shirt. Yeah.
Tom's holding his up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course,
I got this shirt.
They always went back to Never Say Die with the album cover, but they weren't playing Air Dance on those tours. For Junior's eyes. Anyhow, so Ed, let's hear your point of view.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the first record I ever got, heavy metal record, was the Paranoid Iron Man 7-inch. I remember that day distinctly. Back in the 70s, I always listened to the radio. That's how I discovered music. Started getting into the heavier bands. I remember going to anytime I went out with my parents, I tried to find a record store, have to buy some kind of record. I remember holding 2 records up to my mom. This 7-inch, the Black Sabbath 7-inch, and Eric Clapton's Cocaine 7-inch. Like, I want these 2 records. My mom made me decide. She's like, I'm not getting you both. She wasn't happy with either one of the titles, Black Sabbath or Cocaine. But she was like, you could choose one. So I looked at him. I was like, I'm going with Black Sabbath. And that pretty much paved the road for the rest of my life.
And that 7-inch never came with a cover. That was always how it was sold, just in white paper.
Yeah, no, just like this. Yep.
Yeah, a lot of them were sold like that. Yeah,
some of them might have come with 7-inch, but that's the way I bought it. A lot of
that's awesome.
Old 7-inches from the 70s, just like that.
Yeah.
No cover or nothing.
Yeah. They didn't call them 7-inches back then. They called them 45s, man.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. 45
7-inch meant something else.
Yeah, really.
What's on that 7-inch? What songs?
It's Iron Man and Paranoid, which is kind of funny. The 2 hits on the one 7-inch. I think it was a later pressed 7-inch. That's
they would do that like for jukeboxes and stuff.
Exactly.
Too,
yeah.
So, but that was my first heavy metal record. Probably 77 or 78, something like that. As far as these 2 records, absolute classics, as we've all been saying. Black Sabbath, the song is my all-time favorite Black Sabbath song. That is the perfect song. Just from the opening, the bells, it just builds to perfection. And every time you hear it, yes, you have to hear the entire album from start to finish. Mm-hmm. It is the perfect album. It is flawless. It's got a lot of blues in it. I mean, they're a bluesy band. That's the most bluesy album, of course. Paranoid is a better heavy metal album. It's a better constructed album. The songs are great. They're classics. I mean, War Pigs is fucking fantastic. Every song, fucking Electric Funeral, just brilliant songs. But Black Sabbath, the album, is definitely my favorite album. I mean, I will listen to, Paranoid more, Never Say Die more, and other albums more. But anytime anybody asks you what's your favorite Black Sabbath album, Black Sabbath is the first one that comes to mind because of the song, because of the perfect structure of the album, and it was the template. I mean, it created heavy metal. And I like to say I was born in 1969. They wrote the album, recorded the album in 1969. So heavy metal and me were born at the same time.
Fuck that! It's a 1970 album.
Yeah,
you were born. You were born in the hippie years. Do not claim this album as your year.
Hey, I can look at it any way I want to look at it.
Fucking Chris Alla tried to do the same thing. He was like, Paranoid was 71. I'm like, bullshit, it's 70. I got 2 albums since 1970.
71.
You're 71. In America, it was in 71. I'm like, nope, that don't fucking count.
No.
It was released in 1970.
Well, Zeppelin was 69 for you.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Anyhow.
I mean, those are absolute classics. But Black Sabbath, between the 2 of them, definitely my favorite.
All right, let's go to Tony Dio in the center square tonight.
Yeah, so I got into the Sabbath. I told before my whole introduction to Black Sabbath was a cassette that someone gave me. It had Blizzard of Oz and Heaven on one side, Heaven and Hell on the other. So, I kind of got into the Dio, Ozzy, Sabbath, everything at one time like that, just kind of discovering it all. But I knew who Ozzy Osbourne was. And the first introduction to Black Sabbath music, I guess, was with Ozzy era was Speak of the Devil for me, was my first record to hearing all these songs that were Sabbath classics, but it was performed by, Ozzy's band at the time. So my first real Black Sabbath record was what James was mentioning early, that Greatest Hits record with the Triumph of Death album cover. And it just sounded so eerie to me when I listened to it, because you hear the Ozzy versions on Speak of the Devil and they're more 80s sounding, because they got Brad Gillis on guitar and they're tuned different and everything. You hear this original version and they just sounded so primitive. I'm thinking this is around 83 or 80, something like 83, 84, something. I'm hearing something that's 1970. To me, that's 50 years ago at that time. You don't think about it being that close, just 10 years or whatever difference, but it just seemed like it was like, Stone Age. And I was infatuated with it. I was just like, wow, this sounds so cool. It's so heavy, and then I kind of just went from there and started picking up Sabbath records, So, I got, when it comes to these two records, Paranoid is just kind of overplayed for me. It's kind of like what Richard said. Side 2, if I'm going to listen to Paranoid, I throw on side 2 because, Electric Funeral, Hand of Doom, Rat Salad, into, Fairies Wear Boots. It's great. Side 1's a little overplayed for me, with War Pigs, Paranoid, Iron Man. And Planet Caravan's never been like a super, song that I really just love to start with. Some guys, King Fowley from the band Deceased. In his book, he tells the funniest story about getting, discovering Black Sabbath by going through him and his buddy are going through his older brother's 8 tracks or whatever, and they're just sticking the 8 track in and listening to Kansas and whatever they picked up, and they threw in Black Sabbath, and he said, I got a Paranoid 8 track here. He throws in the Paranoid 8 track, and it just happens to be on Planet Caravan. They go, what kind of hippie shit is this? And they just chuck it out. And then they thought Black Sabbath some like hippie band, so they weren't even interested in listening to Black Sabbath anymore. And then he didn't discover them until like the Dio years, really, when Mob Rules came out and stuff. So, but the choice between the two, I've got to go with the debut, because it's like everybody said, you got to listen to this from track 1 all the way through. Especially, it's every song is just excellent, and it's so dark and heavy. And I love Geezer Butler's bass playing on this, man. It's just, you sit there and air bass with it when you're playing. It's just, he's just all over the place with that. And Bill Ward's drumming is so great. It's just everything about it's just a great record. And like I said, I got to pick that one over the 2, because I would say Sabotage is my favorite, but this might be my second favorite. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
cool. So you got me and Ralphus left, and I guess I'm gonna let Ralphus round us out tonight. It was kind of his idea to do this whole thing too. So I'm gonna go. I'm talking about both of these albums. I think I'm gonna be. I don't really care if that album side's played out, because there's a reason it's played out. It's played out because those songs are excellent. We may have heard Paranoid way too many times in our lives, but Iron Man we may have heard too many times. But I tell you what, there's a reason why. And War Pigs, to me, it's just such a freaking powerful song. It's timeless. There's wars going on now, and those lyrics, it just hits so far to home. And
it's never not been relevant, that song. Right. That song has always been relevant, no matter what year you're listening to it.
It always sounds great.
And it's always been killer. I can never get burnt out on War Pigs.
Me neither. I can listen to it over and over again. I
don't know. War Pigs, no.
Paranoid a little bit, yeah. Electric Funeral.
It's so quick though. It's quick song.
Electric Funeral. I fucking love that song.
Yeah.
Hand of Doom. I think Richard was talking about that. That's just a great song. Fairies Wear Boots kicks it off. and kicks up the end of it. But of course, the first album is just amazing. Also, but I'm just gonna lean to Paranoid a little bit more. I just think because it's such a big album for them. I read somewhere as a Geezer Butler, and when he looked back, he said that was his album too. But Sleeping Village, Warning, the Bitterfinger, NIB. I mean, the Wizard Walks By, the song Black Sabbath, which I used to cover in my crappy band back in the day. But I did karaoke a few weeks ago with an old friend of mine, and guess what song we did? We did War Pigs. So, so I'm going to go with Paranoid. One of the rare votes for Paranoid here tonight. We got 2. And I guess we'll round this up to Ralph. And if anybody got any more questions or chit chat, we'll
real quick before Ralph takes over. This will be quick.
Go ahead.
The genius of Bill Ward on the song Iron Man. The way it plays Iron Man, it sounds like a big clunky thing. Walking down the street, the way he just plays it, and then when he gets locked in the groove and Geezer with the bass and
that groove part.
Just Tony's fucking sledgehammer riff with it all. It's like the whole fucking thing. It's like the ultimate fucking really like metal song for like
the way it
so
starts
heavy.
with the guitar, but then he incorporates the guitar later on in the song when the song is actually kicking ass and going fast.
Oh man, the chemistry of that song.
It starts
the whole chemistry.
It ends with the same slowness, but with the fast beats.
Yeah, it is. It's a perfect fucking metal classic song, and it's so fucking perfect. It's everybody shines on that song too. It's like all of them.
Yeah.
You know? Cool. But so I'm gonna start off. Here's my fucking picture with shaking the hand of doom. Fucking happy 77 birthday to Tony Iommi. Nice. Unbelievable that you're still getting ready to go out there. So yeah, I've told the story before, but I'm going to tell it again really quick. So I was born the same week that the debut of Sabbath album came out. I was born February 10th. 3 days later, the Sabbath album was released, and I told the story like I came out of the hospital on that day. And on the way home, I started crying because we were going past the record store, and I pointed at the record store, and my parents were like, "Oh, let's get him his first album." He's pointing at the record store, so they bring me in there, and I was a baby. It was a good day, you know. It was like my first time in a car, first time outside. First time at a record store. I was first time record store, and I just pointed at this picture right here that's behind me, and so I was in the Sabbath way before all you motherfuckers, because the day it came out, I was fucking I fucking fell asleep the first time in my house to Iron Man.
So you were wait a minute. So you were 3 days old and we're taking
3 days old. 3 days old. I think they were supposed to release this record like a month earlier, and they heard the Antichrist was being born, so they held out a little longer. And so I think
it was probably a Disney record you point out.
and take note.
I still got the album today. Same album I picked up that day.
It was an import copy because it hadn't come out the States yet.
So you caught him, Tony.
It's a true story. But anyway, the first album. I mean, my favorite 2 songs on both albums are the lead-off songs, Black Sabbath and War Pigs.
Yeah.
Black Sabbath starts off with a storm, and it gives you this atmosphere. It's like, oh, what the fuck? It's evil already, just looking at it and holding it. And then, same thing, War Pigs has the air raid siren going, and like you were saying, it's the most timeless song. War Pigs is one of the most timeless songs ever, and so is the song Black Sabbath. It's so great still today. It still gives you that chills when you hear it, and I love both of these albums. My favorite band is Black Sabbath. They've always been my favorite. Everything seems to stem from Black Sabbath that I listen to, but Yeah, Black Sabbath, NIB. A lot of people think it's about nativity in black, but it's really like Ozzy in his book said it's like about Bill Ward's goatee. It came to like a nib, I
His
guess, and they
nib.
called him Nib because it looked like a pen thing, you know. But like then there was like the warning, which really was about going to the toilet after Bill Ward, which
Was
you
it?
know, that was like a warning. And then supposedly Wicked World was about not heeding the warning about going to the toilet after Bill Ward. So it's like the whole album was really about Bill Ward. But really, I was going to tell you that my favorite three songs were a Bit of Finger, Wasp, and Basically. They were my three favorite songs. But you know, they were just like filler titles that really didn't have nothing to do with nothing. But so then you know, Paranoid, man, it was just like a little step up more metal. I feel like Master of Realities were really just full on metal. But you know, same thing. War Pigs is one of the greatest songs. It's always relevant. There's never a time where there's not some kind of fucking stupid war going on. And Electric Funeral, man. When I was a kid and I heard that, it was just like the riff is so doomy, fucking has such a great, weird guitar tone. Ozzy's vocals are great. And it just seemed so chaotic at the time, like Electric Funeral. Like it just gets all nuts and it's the slow part and then it gets built up. Fucking insane. Love it. Fairies Wear Boots, another just classic. I just love it, you know. And if I had to pick between the two of them, I guess I got to go with Paranoid by a hair.
Okay.
I think it's like another step more towards the metal world, and I feel like Master of Reality is really where it just becomes this fucking metal juggernaut that can't be stopped from then on, you know. But I love both of them, and in the top, there to me, it's the greatest run of 6 albums by a band. The first 6 albums are just fucking so godly, and I put these 2 albums though near the end. I like the next 4 albums because they just go more and more metal and just more and more crazy, and I just love it. But I love these 2 albums, and that's why they're my favorite band. That's it.
Excellent.
Mine
So I'd like to thank everybody for joining us, give their time to the Rock Fantasy YouTube channel. Does anybody got any more questions? And Richard, it was an honor to have you on. And what are some, I guess I got one more question for you. What other bands have you worked with over the years other than the couple we've talked
man. I have to sort of remember in chronological order here. My first tour was Bob Dylan.
Okay.
And which was really exciting, like watching paint dry. And then, then my second and third tour were AC/DC Stiff Upper Lip tour.
Wow. Nice. I seen that at the Garden.
Yeah, I was there with Buck Cherry opening. I was at that one.
Yeah.
And then I did Chili Peppers and Sheryl Crow and the Beastie Boys and I mean just ton of Aerosmith. 04 I did Aerosmith. I did I mean, but you know, really, I mean, you tour with some band and you don't really care, you know, it's like just something that you do for money. But then, you know, eventually once in a while you hit something. And Ronnie James Dio was friends with the owner of the company I worked for, both Italian and they had a history. And I would see Ronnie and he would always say, you know, when's Robert going to let you tour with me? But the thing was Ronnie always only had one truck and they had some dedicated lifelong people out there that weren't just going to move over for me. And so I always ended up on, you know, some big shit tour like, you know, Backstreet Boys or something. But, you know, I mean, I would have loved. And so when I finally got the chance to do Heaven and Hell, it was cool. And I was lucky enough to be in Atlantic City on I stood on the stage and watched Ronnie's last show ever.
Wow.
And so that was cool. But yeah, I mean, the stuff you guys would be interested in was definitely the Metal Mastered Away with Motorhead and Priest and the Ozzfest and stuff like that. But The Metal
Stones.
Master. I did the Stones. Actually, the 50th anniversary. Is it the 40th or 50th? I think it's the 50th in Newark and Barclays Center in Brooklyn. And
I was at the Prudential Center where they did the video. Yeah, I was at that one.
Did you see the first night or the second night, which was all the special guest?
I was there with the special guest night. Yeah, the pay-per-view one. Yep. I had Mom.
They're doing their 80th anniversary next month, I think.
Well, I tell you,
I was at the second night.
Yeah, that's the good. That's a cool one. That was cool for me because my favorite Stones albums are Let It Bleed and Sticky Fingers and stuff with Mick Taylor, and so that was cool to see that guy. That was cool. But I toured for a living for a long time, and probably if you took a pie chart, it would probably be less than 10% of it was things I actually was a fan of. But I mean, some things I became friendly with people and would respect them, like the things I would have never given time of day prior, like Beastie Boys. But I grew to be appreciative of their generosity and how they seem like really nice people, and they are always really nice. But I grew up going to see Judas Priest and Sabbath and AC/DC. So when I had the chance to tour those people, it was surreal. It was really surreal, but it was cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, I remember he came up. You were out with the Eagles once, and
nice.
And he called me, and he's coming through my town. He's like, "Hey, you got anywhere I can park a truck? We can go get some dinner." I was like, "Yeah, it's a dead end road in front of my house." So I got half of the Eagles PA system sitting in my front yard. Yeah, but yeah, and then one time I remember you called me. I think you were out on the end tour with Sabbath.
Yeah, I did the first leg.
Yeah, you called me and you said you were out west somewhere. It was snowing. You were like, I don't know whose idea it was to route this tour out here with all this snow with a bunch of 70-year-old men when we should be in Florida right now touring or something.
Yeah. I was some production people I know had asked for me, so I did it, but I really wasn't that into it. And it started in Omaha where it was like 6 degrees, and then we went to Chicago, Minneapolis, and Canada where it got really cold. So that would be my last Sabbath thing, quote Sabbath thing. But I mean, I feel fortunate. I seen Sabbath with Ronnie, and I seen Sabbath with Aussie in 04 and 05, and so and 99. I on my own money. I went in 99 to see Sabbath with Pantera in Texas, and so I seen to me it's like people always come up to me and they'll say, "Oh my God, I never got to see Ronnie James Dio. I'm the biggest fan. He's like the greatest singer on earth. I never got to see him." Well, if you didn't see Ronnie James Dio, it's your fucking fault. He only toured 50 years. I mean,
and he played everywhere. And he played everywhere.
Everywhere.
From hole in the wall clubs to arenas,
Yeah. That 99 reunion tour was the greatest tour ever with Deftones, Pantera.
Yeah, that's when I saw it. Yeah.
And you had Bill Ward, and they did a full set, and it was unbelievable. Me and my friends took a limo down to that show, and it was the most important show I ever went to.
What's that?
It's a great
the Meadowlands Arena?
The Meadowlands reunion show. Yeah. We took a fucking limo. I never did a limo to any show, but we did, and then we stayed in the limo during the Deftones because we just wanted to get
exactly.
We didn't give a fuck. But that Pantera was great that night, and fucking Sabbath was the best I ever seen them. I seen them every time they came through, and that was the best time.
People don't speak of it a lot, but the Ozzfest in 2001, they were doing that song "Scary Dreams," which was sort of like a Hand of Doom type song. It was supposed to be on the next album they were working on with Rick Rubin, which obviously never happened. But I always thought that song was really cool.
Yeah,
I'm not familiar with that show. So.
I've got a bootleg audio. It's on YouTube. I got a bootleg audio of it.
Oh wow! They were playing it live, and
yes.
I don't even know that song.
So that was,
and they were like, "This is going to be on our next album." The original four of us are making an album, and it
didn't even make it. Didn't make it to the end album that they did, like the last. Wow, I gotta look into that.
So
she would have had to pay Bill Ward. That wasn't going to happen.
So
Bill Ward.
I was at Ozzfest 2001. I believe that was original Sabbath, also, right?
Yeah, that's the one they played it at.
Okay, yeah, I must have heard it. I went to that.
If I'm not mistaken,
I went to that show.
I was probably there too, but I was always tripping on that.
I went to that show in Camden, New Jersey.
They were long days.
I went to like when Ozzfest would come around in those days, especially like the 03, the 04. The last Ozzfest I went to was the one that had Maiden on. And
yeah, it's 05.
I stopped going after that. I just lost interest. I kind of took Iron Maiden's side in that whole battle, and you gave a little insight into that I never knew.
Yeah.
Talking about the ticket sales and stuff that no one really talked about,
No,
and Sabbath never headlined after that one either. That was the last time Sabbath was the headline.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just saying he put a lot of insight into what went on with the Maiden and Sabbath feud with the ticket sales and whatever was going on. I remember
there was a lot of stuff that people wouldn't normally know, and it sucks because it's like I mean, they didn't have the ego. They couldn't let their ego down to realize you've been out. Ozzy's been with Sabbath since '99. The shows have gotten consistently shorter and shorter and shorter.
Yeah.
On that same tour, he did Madison, Wisconsin, and I watched the show, and Ozzy threw the mic down, and he said, he said, "You've seen your last Ozzy Osbourne performance ever," and he threw his mic down.
Wow.
And the next 2 nights later, we're in St. Louis, and he's singing just like nothing ever happened. But he wanted to quit. They were doing Dirty Women, and he could not ever sing that song at the end of it where walking the streets. He couldn't do that part anymore.
I thought that was the only reason that song was in the set was because he could sing it no problem, because that wasn't like a hit song back in the day. Like, so why throw that one in? I always thought that was like a song that he just liked singing.
Yeah. I don't know what was up with that, but the shows got shorter and shorter, and
I remember.
I said that plenty of times on this show and other shows that the Ozzfest were not full sets of Black Sabbath.
They definitely weren't.
I used to say it all the time, and everybody that's seen them, it was a full set when I seen them. I was a full, and I was like, the reunion show was a full set.
Yeah,
they never did a full set on Ozzfest. It was always never as full as that original reunion show.
I mean, Richard was there. Like, let's say in the year they toured with Priest, how long were they doing a set then? I thought
I don't have it in front of me, but I know like in 05
somebody could Google
like they would do
it was always a little over an hour, but it was never like that full.
I'm talking about
Black Sabbath set.
I'm talking about 04 though. Like
I don't
but that reunion show, after that reunion show, they never did a full set like they did on
like an hour.
The reunion tours,
hour 15,
the reunion
maybe.
Tours were like almost 2 hours, where everything else after that was never a full set. People were always
probably
because
it was a festival.
Yeah,
it was like
but it was like
but
they were the headliners, and it should have been longer. But it was always great. But it was a full
I can remember.
day,
I think when Priest was on the road with them, it was kind of like a co-headliner thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it wasn't like a full set. Like if you were the headliner between three bands.
I understand that, Ralph. We're not arguing that point. A
lot of people do argue it, though. They say they think it was like a full set after.
Well, one other thing is like when they got close to the end, Ozzy would just look, do the throat, and they'd go right into Children of the Grave or whatever, or right into Paranoid. I mean, they would cut stuff out, and the shows were getting shorter. Yeah.
Hey Tom, that sounds like John Brullo some nights. That's John. That's Tom Singer in Into the Void.
Yeah.
Like I'll be looking at the set list when we're talking about the show, and all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, that one got cut off. He is our local Aussie.
Yeah, it's been 20 years, so my memory, there's things I remember.
I totally remember that year and like seeing like how much, like there was quite a few nights where that like Ozzy would cancel back in those days. It was getting kind of like normalcy. And I can remember, it's too bad that Chris Allen didn't hop on the show tonight, because I remember me and him like chatting about it's like, when Ozzfest comes here, we hope that like they're going to be able to play. And then of course the one night when we saw Halford, it ended up being where something you're always going to talk about, because it was so. I remember standing in the pit that night, Richard, and like everybody, like not all the other bands that were on that tour were coming out to watch that final set, but that night, like everybody was around me, like Lamb of God and I forget all these other bands were all in the pit, like watching, going like, "Oh, this is history being made tonight."
Yeah. Well, I'd gotten just a vibe. Something was wrong because you never saw certain people. Like you didn't see Rob Halford at 3 p.m. He just wasn't doing stuff. Right. And so I saw Rob talking to Bill Ward. I saw both of them walking toward the stage. I saw things going on and I knew something was wrong. So I got out and Bill told me that, Rob's going to sing for Sabbath. And I'm like, oh, hell yeah. I consider myself very fortunate to have seen those two shows. And oddly enough, Johnny Kelly of Type O was walking up the street. It's like a ramp, and he stopped. I could see him like looking at Bill, and so I called him over and I said, Johnny, you know Bill, right? And he said, no. And I said, Bill, this is Johnny Kelly of Type O Negative, and Bill Ward looked at Johnny Kelly and he said, oh man, I'm a big fan of your work and I'm a big fan of Type O Negative. I want you guys on my radio show one day. Wow. And Johnny Kelly looked at me and he's like, he couldn't believe it that Bill Ward said he's a fan of Type O. And so Bill Ward was like, give Richard your number and your contact info and I'm going to have you on my show. Bill had to go, but that's how I introduced Johnny to Bill. But it was funny because it was in the middle of all the Halford, Ozzy not performing, and it was pretty cool. And Johnny Kelly still remembers it, obviously, and he's cool.
Ed, were you at that gig?
Which one? No, with Halford,
you were there.
Not. Okay. I saw the tour, but
where were you? Where were you at Jones Beach? Yeah,
probably Jones Beach.
So you were at Jones Beach, and now we're way off subject. You were at Jones Beach. That was, I don't know if you were in the stands already, but that was the time that they were booing Superjoint Ritual, and they were chanting.
I was there. I wasn't in the stands, but I was on the side.
Oh yeah, you were there, Richard. They were like chanting, "Shut the fuck up," like a pro wrestling chant, and I couldn't believe it.
And Selmo, the people were yelling Pantera, and Selmo responded, "Pantera's dead. This is Superjoint Ritual, Superjoint Ritual." And nobody would chant Superjoint Ritual, so they started throwing shit at him.
That's hard to chant.
That's great.
He said chant or whatever.
And of course, Phil was rambling, and then what I remember the most about that night, other than that, and it was like an ECW wrestling chant where they were like, "Shut the fuck up," yelling.
Yep.
And then it came back, and then Dimmu Borgir was up next, the Norwegian black metal guys, and they came up, and like Shagrath is like, "We're Dimmu Borgir from Norway, and we are here to do the devil's work." And unlike and unlike some other bands, we let our music do our talking. And I was like, that was a direct throwback.
Nice.
That was probably the loudest chant I heard at an Ozzfest was people yelling Pantera at Phil and Selma.
I'm glad you put a lot of insight, because I kind of forgot. I was like, I remember they were booing him, and I thought it was just because he was rambling in between each song, and I could see the rest of the guys in the band just looking like, come on, that's they only had like 20 minutes, but he
was like, fuck Pantera, Pantera's dead, Superjoint. Nobody would chant Superjoint. He's just like, but that was my second favorite. Next to, I was on Metallica in 2003, and unbeknownst to me, the Fred Durst got on a radio station in Chicago and called like Chicago sports teams pussies and your sports teams suck and the Blackhawks are faggots and we're gonna come. Limp Bizkit is coming to Chicago. We're gonna fuck all your girlfriends and show them what a real man is. And I had no idea. I had no idea this happened. And so I get out and walk. I'm walking to catering and I see like beer and hot dogs just pelting Fred Durst in the face and the guitar player. And I was like, what's going on? This is in Chicago at Toyota little stadium. And then the guitar tech told me, he's like, yeah, they Fred Durst ran his mouth on the radio putting down Chicago sports teams yesterday. So.
Wow, that's great.
Good. It's a good thing.
Fuck Chicago.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing he wasn't playing Philly. It would even got worse.
I know.
True.
But anyhow, man, this was awesome, and I think we'll wrap this up. And Richard, I hope that we cross paths again. I love hearing your stories, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
So,
along with Bill Ward, God bless him.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yes, sir.
And,
absolutely.
and for all of us that couldn't get a ticket or can't afford to go or whatever, can't get time to go, I hope that they're going to do this on a streaming platform. I don't know why they wouldn't.
Probably.
Well, there's money to be made here. They'll do something.
There's some money to be made, charity to be made.
If they don't stream it, someone's going to tape it and put it on YouTube the next day.
I think I seen something just come up. I think I just seen something come up about it, how it's streaming.
Yeah,
and we're all going to be at Rock Fantasy's Steve Keeler's house for.
We'll put a projection, or we'll do it at the Zone at Clemson or something. We'll just put it up in a place we can all go watch it, and that would be fun. And we'll all hang out. And
souvenir T-shirts coming soon.
Yeah,
so, you can buy.
I would assume with Jason Momoa hosting and Tom Morello putting everything together that it's going to be live on the internet.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah.
2 more reasons I don't want to watch it.
Fair enough.
Well, anyhow, it's great to see everybody tonight, and for everybody on the show. And I'm trying to get my notes back here. For Ralph Viera at Almost Human, thanks for coming tonight. We hope to have you back on the channel soon. Got Count Ralphus, we got James Delisle, we got Tony Dio, Tom Cap, Into the Void. Come out and see him if you're in the New Jersey, New York area. Come look up Into the Void. Come out if you want a Black Sabbath experience. They're going to give it to you. And even Johnny Brulo will cut some songs off the set just like Ozzy did back in 05. So, and for Ed Farsley at Armageddon Productions and Richard Johnson, it was great to have you guys on tonight. And this episode will be up tomorrow. So, Black Sabbath.
Yep. See you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve.